You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Soo Myland, of counsel at MMZ LAW and co-founder at Ufuria, practicing in estate planning, special needs, trusts, wealth preservation. How are you, Soo?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me tonight.
Yeah, good to see you. What's going on with COVID there? You guys doing okay? I mean, not well in general. California, is California? Is it still on the rise? What's going on?
Well, recently the governor just put a 30-day mask mandate back in place from the 15th of this month to the 15th of next month. So there's a little bit of protest going on between the counties, but
yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
needed though, right?
The holidays, yeah.
Wow, it's wild. So we actually had Maribel, you work with out in Claremont, California. We had her on episode 69. We just want to give her a shout out because we think she's awesome, and we had a great episode. She gave us some good clips and some good advice. So it must be pretty awesome to work with her. So shout out to Maribel. Yeah, and so we haven't featured you yet, but I do have your story. It's in the queue. We sort of recently received it. I've gone over it. That's what I do. So it's a cool story. Tell us about where you were born and raised.
Yeah, so I was born in Seoul, Korea, and I came over when I was 2 years old. My father obtained a residency at Mercy Hospital on the south side of Chicago. So this is where my family kind of started. It was interesting because, many immigrants, when they come over, they either lose so much or leave so much. And
Right.
My dad, being a physician, he still, I remember, moonlighted in the local mall, piercing ears while he was going through his residency.
That's amazing.
Yeah, kind of keep our family sustained. My mom was the best mom and a homemaker, so he was able to support our family and allow her to focus on bringing up my brother and me.
That's amazing. So why the move? You were 2 years old, and why all of a sudden was he let's go to USA? And where did he go, by the way? What state did you guys go to?
To Illinois, to Chicago.
To Chicago, you said. Okay.
Yeah.
So why the move? Do you know why?
My grandmother and some of my uncles and aunts from my father's side had already immigrated over.
Okay.
And, they had gone through the war in the 50s, and they were just looking for kind of a better life for everyone. And my father actually came over first before I came when I was 2. So there's a picture of me running through O'Hare Airport.
Really?
My mother, who I knew because she was in Korea with me for some time, but my father, I had no idea. And I called him sir for a few weeks, and that bothered him so much. But
you called him sir?
That's the kind of sacrifice I think, that people make to make sure that, they can pave the way for their families.
Wait, why? I don't get it. Why you called him sir?
Because he was gone from, I think, maybe just after I was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. So when you say he went there first, he didn't go a couple weeks before you. He was there literally
a couple years before.
Couple years. Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. That's tremendous. So you come to the USA and you settle in Chicago. What was that? I mean, I know you probably don't remember it 2 years old, but what was what your first memory of the USA?
Well, what's interesting is my parents were really focused on giving my brother and me a great education, even from the very beginning. So I remember going to a Jewish preschool
Nice.
in Chicago because it was a private preschool. And I remember singing the Shabbat Shalom song.
Shabbat, it is Friday night. If you'd like to sing it now, we can do that. If you'd like to do that now, we can do that. So Shabbat Shalom to you, Soo. Anyway, okay, go ahead. So You remember going to the Jewish preschool?
Yeah, yeah. Then we took piano lessons at the American Conservatory of Music, and just had a really interesting kind of intro to American life. And then we went to across the lake to a small town in southwestern Michigan.
But the big question is did you get bat mitzvahed?
No, I went to a lot of bat mitzvahs.
Okay, yeah, I'm just kidding. All right. So you moved across the lake, so.
But yeah, we went to St. Joseph, Michigan, which,
Okay.
interestingly enough, it was a twin city with a city called Benton Harbor. And Benton Harbor was predominantly Black, and St. Joseph was predominantly white. And it was actually the headquarters of Whirlpool. So it was a very interesting demographic there. We were one of the only Asian families. I grew up kind of feeling different. Yet, because my father was a professional, we, were in the country club and all of those things, but it did always feel like I was different from everyone. So that took a bit of adjusting.
So was it really hard for him to get, he was a guy now, right? God, I don't know if that's like derogatory. So like, was it really hard for him to get his skills transferred to the USA to like become a licensed doctor, like after moving from Seoul? Do you recall that or anything?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, after he did his residency at Mercy Hospital on the South Side, and we moved to that smaller town in Michigan, he ended up developing a private practice with some partners, which grew. But he remained in that town for his entire career, over 40 years.
Okay.
So he was a very well-established doctor. And when it's a very small town, everyone knows you. So he ended up, kind of delivering all the babies of my teachers and my friends.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. That's really cool. All right. And then you went to the University of Michigan, go Blue, right?
I did, go Blue, yeah.
Go Blue. So what was your experience like there?
Oh gosh, I went to Michigan at the best time. Our football team won the national championship in 1997.
Excellent.
Tom Brady had just come on board.
Tom Brady, I'm in New England. I'm like a huge Patriots fan, and I'm still a Brady fan. That's amazing. But we can. Yeah. That's a total other podcast that I'll never be invited in to talk about. So, but I'm just kind of telling you, like, that's really cool that you were.
Yeah, the Fab Five was
Fab Five, yes.
Basketball team. Yeah. Chris Webber had just left the team, but Juwan Howard,
Jalen Rose.
Yeah.
Sure.
We were all just coming up at the same time that I was going to school there. So it was a super fun time to go to Michigan.
Cool. Yeah, wicked cool. I have some good friends who went to Michigan. I have a couple friends. I'm from Maine. This is a kind of a side note. Everybody could fast forward this 15 seconds if you want, but I have a couple good friends from Maine who ended up meeting lovely, like, Michigan women and marrying them at like a wedding. It was real. I'll tell you offline, but it was really interesting. And I went down to a Michigan Ohio State game like 10 years ago. So that's great. That's like a
last weekend.
What's that?
Last weekend, the first time in 10 years we overtook the Buckeyes.
Unbelievable. So yeah, that's a great experience. So you had a great college experience. So when was that moment, Sue, that you were like, okay, I'm going to go to law school?
Well, I mean, again, just being raised in a kind of traditional Korean American household or Asian American household, really, education was at the forefront of every discussion. And so we knew we were going to go to college. And then in college, we knew we were going to go to some sort of graduate school. And, I just, watching my father, be a very busy doctor. He would study a lot too. And it just, all of that stuff didn't interest me. It actually kind of made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
And so even though I was okay with the science and math classes, I thought, I'm really interested more in reading and writing. Yep. And I thought law school was kind of my only other graduate school option. Right. So I ended up going to Washington University in St. Louis. Also a very, very an excellent experience. And during that time, I always thought, I don't have the personality really to be a litigator. So I was more interested in kind of transactional and contract type of work. But I also enjoyed the fact that having a law school degree didn't necessarily limit me to being an attorney. It just kind of teaches you a lot of things about how to think about, situations. And so I always felt that it would, be kind of an open-ended option for me to have that degree.
Yeah, no, totally. So you did the law school route. So tell us, like, what advice could you give to law students right now for the job market? Like, if somebody's looking for a job, what a law student, 2L, 3L, what's your advice?
Well, especially even in the last couple of years with the pandemic, things have changed so much, because I have friends who own firms that are now able to recruit nationally, because attorneys are working remotely. And so instead of having to have attorneys physically in the state and licensed in the state, now they can have kind of satellite offices with these attorneys around the nation. So
Right. So what was your biggest challenge in law school? I'm curious. It sounds like you really liked it. Like you excelled, or
keeping focused and studying in time for the exams.
so what's your best advice to a law student on how to get through it?
I think what we learn in law school obviously is very important, but it's really the process and actually even the networking. Our law school was built by Anheuser-Busch. It was Anheuser-Busch Hall. And
Nice.
every Friday they would sponsor a happy hour.
Wait, what?
And
where was it? Like, why didn't I apply to this place? You had like a keg of like Bud Heavy?
Absolutely.
Goodness.
Every Friday. But I mean, it was really more about that. And I think that many of us were under such pressure and stress about, getting those summer clerkships and what we were going to do after law school. But if I had the ability to do it again, I think I would just really enjoy the social aspect of law school,
Really?
not
Okay.
only the education, but
Okay.
I mean, as you know, when you come out into the world, it ends up being kind of who you know.
It's
So
true.
yeah,
It's true.
and the alumni from both schools that I went to is quite powerful. So that's always a good thing when you,
Okay.
randomly meet someone from Michigan. You have an instant bond and an instant connection that can turn into business.
So let's go back to that Anheuser-Busch. I'm just kidding. So, okay, that's a great response. So what was the thing you liked the most about law school, like going to Washington?
Honestly, it just exposed me to so much. We had one of the nation's top clinical programs, which I thought was
that's huge.
a huge advantage. Yeah. Because we were kind of a traditional law school, not so practical. But just like in other professions, I think what you learn in school doesn't necessarily apply to the real world. So I think I have always been an advocate in trying to model law school after medical school a bit more, where you have a residency, an internship, and you have to be out there for some time before you can actually, hang your own shingle kind of thing.
Smart.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. We talk about that a lot on the show. I think law school should have that third year, just totally clinical, go learn something. It's so theoretical that, it's great to read cases and learn the rule and the holding and all that stuff, but you need to know how to do something, right? So I think that's so smart. And if you know to do that when you're in law school, to do those clinicals and to do those externships and to like who to talk to, I think you're really ahead of the game.
Yeah, and Missouri had a great program where we were able to be certified to be court appointed. I was in a guardian ad litem position for the court while I was in that clinic, and being able to appear before judges and actually kind of see the day-to-day of attorney life was huge. I think way more beneficial than all of the books and, like you said, all of the things and theories and stuff that we learned.
So what was your first job out of law school like?
So I ended up, so we were in St. Louis and, kind of the heart of the Midwest. And young at the time and thought, we don't want to be stuck here in Missouri. So we decided, why don't we just go to California? Why don't we, go out to the beach and live this fabulous life? So my husband and I, when I graduated, all of our family is from the Midwest. We decided to just pick up, ignore job opportunities and family and friend help, and picked up and moved to California. And I had a few friends out here because I had gone to boarding school in high school for a bit out in Monterey. And just it was a slap in the face kind of reality check where California, we ended up in first Riverside, and then a town called Rancho Cucamonga right outside of Ontario.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is California. We were kind of like in the armpit of the state, nowhere close to the beach. Yeah.
Don't take offense, anybody out there listening.
No, I mean, yeah, no offense, but our kind of dream or vision of what it was to live in California was absolutely
So
not.
why'd you go there though?
Because of the friends that we had.
Oh, okay.
Just we wanted to at least have some kind of.
Did you kind of like give them a look like, what's this place? I'm out of here.
Yeah. I mean, it was so dry, and like I said, the ocean was nowhere to be found.
Nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you just went to California out there, you had a couple friends, and then so you're still there.
Yep. We I took a job for a few months at an attorney's office in Marina Del Rey, and I thought, oh, this is my dream job, an amazing office on the waterfront, and
there's your water. There you go.
Yeah. But the commute from the Inland Empire where we were living was sometimes 4 hours one way.
Each way? What?
I mean, you're on the 10 freeway and there's a few accidents, and then, you're going to be stuck there for a while. So I did that for about 4 months, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. I don't care how sexy it is to be in Marina Del Rey practicing, but I was still studying for the bar at the time.
Okay.
So I ended up coming back into the Inland Empire and getting a job as a legal assistant with a statewide firm called Best and Krieger.
Okay.
And after I passed the bar, they hired me on as an associate.
Nice.
And I mean, that's one thing that I think I would talk to law students about is, everyone kind of thinks about those big firm jobs, partnership track, and and that's kind of like many of the students' goals is to get that type of position at some point. But, the grind is real, and the billable hours and the pressure. But the advantage of it is I worked under partners who had so much experience and so many connections in the community that I would never have gotten on my own had I gone solo or even into a small firm at the beginning. And I had just kind of found myself in estate planning, supporting an attorney actually who had graduated from Michigan as well.
Okay.
And I remember, being in my early 20s, straight out of law school, they would send me to these meetings that, maybe they thought was more efficient for me to take over or whatever.
Yep.
But in estate planning, it was a really kind of difficult start because many of the clients were like, you're 24 years old.
Yeah.
You don't have a house of your own. You don't have any children. What in the world do you know that you're going to advise me about my businesses? And
let me stop you right there. Like, do you think it helps to have that sort of experience? Like whether it's like being a divorce lawyer or being like a estate, do you think it helps to have like the real world experience for the type
Absolutely.
of law that you're doing? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, 20 years later and having taken a hiatus, lived a bit, built a business and gone back into the law, I have a whole different perspective. And I feel that I am much more of an advocate for my clients than I was when I was trying to go by the book, because I can truly kind of feel their experiences, talk to them from my own personal experience, and advise them both with the law and with life, which I think is very important.
I think that's important. Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, that was like kind of my question, like how did you get into estate planning and wealth preservation and all those what you're doing today. Like I wanted to.
Yeah, and so it was just kind of coincidental. Like I said, in law school, I loved contracts. I knew kind of that I was wanting to do something kind of more transactional. And when I landed at this law firm, I just ended up supporting this attorney who happened to be a Michigan grad, and we just connected, and he was an estate planner.
Nice.
And that department was doing business, real estate, and estate planning. And these were probably some of the best attorneys in the area and had so many connections, like I said, with the community and kind of long-term connections as well. And I think that's sort of the challenge too in estate planning is when you're an immigrant, I'm a first generation,
Yep.
I don't have the concept of generational wealth. I mean, from,
Sure.
my home country and my family there, but here we're really just starting anew. So having the concept of passing on wealth through multiple generations was something that I kind of observed from afar.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So that's pretty interesting. So then how did you meet Maravel?
Yeah, so 20 years ago, it was, especially in our area, it was sort of a boys' club. So, we were two young female attorneys and minorities at that. And we ended up constantly finding each other at these meetings or gatherings that, our partners would encourage us to go to on their behalf. And we kind of became friends early on. But we didn't really cross paths too much except for those types of, events or whatever. And many years passed before we kind of serendipitously connected again at a coffee shop. And she had just mentioned to me that she was thinking about opening up her own practice here in Claremont. And I was telling her that I was kind of ready to get back into the law, having built the dog hotel and kind of being comfortable about the fact that that business was going to operate without me having to work on that full time. So she asked me to join her, and I was kind of hesitant because I was so used to kind of my own gig at that point. And actually that was really eye-opening too, is coming from a firm where you're, just grinding for the firm. Not that that's a bad thing, but
Yeah.
It's always for, it's not necessarily coming from you. Whereas building the dog business, I mean, my husband and I lived in the building for 6 months when we first built that dog business because we wanted to know all the ins and outs. Just totally moved out of our house into this warehouse space. And just that kind of grind was so much different and much more fulfilling. And the motivation came from somewhere completely different. So having had that experience, I think being an entrepreneur, I think it's very hard to then go back to working for somebody else or, depending on someone else for your paycheck. So I was kind of hesitant to join up with anybody.
Sure.
She was a friend of mine, which actually also gave me some pause because, they always talk about.
Right. Well, so you met her at an event first, like that was the first place you met her?
Yeah, probably at like an estate planning council.
That's
meeting.
awesome. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like you're of counsel, right? So like what does of counsel mean?
So it means that I'm not right now a partner, so to speak, in the business financially. There are things that we do to split certain things, but it gives me much less obligation. Kind of as the business owner, I'm more participating in the firm versus managing it.
Sure. So that's awesome. And what do you see for the future of MMZ and being there with Maravel and taking on these cases in Claremont? You guys do estate planning, you do wealth preservation, you do, special needs law, like all this wonderful, important, fulfilling type of law. Like, what do you see there for the future for you guys?
Yeah, it's been such a special connection. And kind of a special business, I feel like, that we have here, because both of us are very similar in the sense that, you know, having a cultural similarity, being raised to respect our elders in a way that's kind of extra, and really thinking more about not just passing assets and money, but passing experience and reputation and just hard work. I think both of us have kind of a different angle on how we help our clients. And we're an all-female firm, which we're really proud of as well.
No, that's totally cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Ufuria.
Yes.
Tell us about Ufuria.
So Ufuria is a multi-service pet care facility. We do dog daycare, dog boarding, grooming. We did training, and we're still kind of in between a trainer right now. And we sell all natural food and treats for cats and dogs.
That's amazing. So when did you launch that?
So back in 2003, when I was studying for the bar, my husband was kind of figuring out what he was going to be doing in life. And coming coming from the Netherlands, he remembered, you know, it's a country of lots of land and lots of animals, and he was just a big animal lover. So I thought, man, you know, we've got to figure something out, like some sort of business or something. So we went to our local library one day and picked a book called like 50 businesses to open with no overhead or something like that.
Really?
And pet sitting was one of them. So being Midwesterners, we decided we're just going to pound the pavement, knock on doors, and ask people if they'd like us to walk their dog or sit for their cat or bird.
I love that. Have you ever written that out, Sue? Like, have you, like, you should write that out and put it on your wall at Ufuria. I think, because I think that's tremendous, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, you laugh. It's funny. It sounds funny, but I think that's really like kind of genuine. You know?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because you know, I feel like our attitude about neighbors and friendliness was a little bit misperceived sometimes. People would look at us like we were crazy. We'd wave and they'd kind of like just keep walking, you know. We thought, what is going on with these people? But we just worked so hard. Within a few years, we had about 400 clients in the area that we were servicing in their homes. And at like $18 a pet sit, if you can imagine, we were doing like 25 sits a day from, you know, 5 in the morning to 11 at night, just mapping out, you know, sits from here to there. We did that for 7 years. And in the meantime, I had passed the bar, joined the firm, and my husband was operating that business mostly on his own, and I would help him on the weekends. And we finally hired some help because it's a 365-day job. You know, we work the most when people are traveling on the weekend.
A very important job too, by the way. I mean,
it really is.
No, I mean, because look, pets are part of the family.
Our family,
you know? Family. I mean, I grew up with 2 amazing dogs. You know, I want to get one again at some point. So, you know, if the dog is going to go somewhere where you're going to Manhattan for a couple of days, like you want the dog, you want to know that your pet's in good company, right?
Right. And, you know, honestly, what I started finding with my estate planning clients as I was getting into the law and Erwin was doing the pet sitting, we started having mutual clients because, you know, the people who were coming to me for estate planning also had pets that they were, you know, very much into, whether it be horses, which were a whole nother thing, or dogs, cats, domestic pets at home. And I started also seeing this trend of, you know, there were people who had children who were living with them like well into their adulthood. Like I had this case where it was 2 adult children in their 50s still living with their parents, and the parents told me, you know, we've already given them their inheritance during their lifetime, so everything's going to the dogs. And I thought, oh gosh, we've got to make sure that we word this very tightly and we cover all the, you know.
Really? Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah. So you know, they want you to drive them through McDonald's for the ice cream cone, like
cappuccino at Starbucks, you know.
No, that they actually, like the local Starbucks, the drive-through has like the pictures of all the dogs like eating that ice cream, you know, like when we do the drive-through. But anyway, all right. So Sue, so you started this, you're an entrepreneur, like you started Ufuria. So tell us, like, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs?
You know, you have to be a special kind of I think risk taker to be an
Yeah,
entrepreneur. You have to be able to stomach some of the really kind of scary times. I'm sort of like an all-in type of person. I gamble that way and I live life that way.
yeah,
So I think that that's something that you just have to let go of fear. And if you're really passionate about it, you just have to go for it. I was fortunate enough to have kind of the force support of my family behind me. So, you know, that was helpful, but I did, you know, just kind of decide I'm just going to do this and I believe in it. And I wrote a 60-page business plan and submitted it to my father. And
really? Okay.
yeah,
All right.
he gave us some seed money to establish the building that we
Great.
have now.
That's great. So where do you see yourself in like a few years?
You know, having come back into the law kind of on my own terms, I still operate the dog hotel as well. I don't feel the pressure of the billable hours, and I don't feel the pressure of even the paycheck, honestly. It's much more of a passion and a
Yeah,
real kind of way to connect and get to know people. And I mean, estate planning is super interesting because you really get to hear stories
sure.
about these families and how they built their life and legacy and their businesses. So I think a few years from now, hopefully I'll be, you know, Marvel and I have been talking about expanding the business a bit. We've got all sorts of things going on right now. We're really excited about the new year. So hopefully I'm just doing even more than what we're doing now.
By the way, like, is there a lot of tax like involved in what you do, like with the law?
You know, there used to be. So when I first started, estate tax was down to about, or in the $1 million range per individual. So we were doing a lot of estate tax planning,
Okay.
which involved like sub-trust splitting. But nowadays with the exemption so high,
Yeah.
about $12 million a person,
How
almost 20,
much?
of just about $12 million an individual.
Wow.
Anything over that, you're subject to a very hefty estate tax, which is
Okay.
where we would come in and plan to kind of preserve some of that by moving assets at the first death of a married couple. But we unfortunately don't see that too often
Do you,
because
you do like smaller wills too, wills and trusts and that sort of thing, or not really?
yeah. I mean, it just depends, but I mean,
Okay.
I think that with you know, the internet is a whole nother thing too. I mean, a lot of people are doing their own things online, and we find that we end up kind of unwinding some
Yeah,
things
yeah,
that people
yeah.
have gotten themselves into by doing
Right.
their
So
own.
like, why shouldn't somebody go out and get like the $300 like I don't want to name any brands, but like
Yeah.
the form that you can buy at Staples.
Yeah. Well, because you know, even in my initial consultations, the questions that I ask my clients, they often say, "Wow, I never thought about that." So I'm here to give them all sorts of what ifs and considerations when they're thinking about their estate planning. There are some tax issues that we, you know, kind of counsel them about, especially with passing property between generations that they don't think about. I think a lot of people, out of convenience, want to put their children on their accounts or their properties during lifetime, but we talk to them about why that might not be the best
Yeah.
solution for them.
Okay. Soo Myland, did we leave anything out today or what?
We covered a lot.
You did, right? So is there anything else that you'd want to say to the Lawyer Stories community besides that you're gonna get online soon? You're gonna get on, you're gonna get on Facebook, you're gonna
Yeah, I'm resisting all of that.
okay.
No, I think that it's such a privilege to be able to be an attorney
Yeah,
and really kind of feel fulfilled by truly helping people kind of, you know, do things with their hard-earned efforts and their assets. And in all areas of law, actually, there's always that fulfillment of that positive outcome. So I'm just super fortunate to have had the education and the experience to allow me to do what I do today.
For sure. Well, it sounds like anybody would come and have your services. It seems like you guys really have it together there at MMZ. And I really appreciate all of you there. If I'm ever out in California in that way, like it'd be awesome to
please come by,
hang out with you all. Yeah, so thank you so much for like taking the time to chat with us and giving us some good advice and telling us about your tremendous story.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. So stay right there. And everybody else, thanks for tuning in wherever you are in the world today. Enjoy yourselves.